Hello? Yeah, I've heard from a couple of the people that I'll be talking to here that they've had a couple of mimosas and they've asked for me to simplify the questions. So, Marquise, will you please come up? Shirin, would you please come up? Was that unbelievable? Were their presentations unbelievable? No, whichever seat you like. But before we get started right here, I just wanted to say, can you hang here one second? That I've become aware that there's a lot of people here that think, that get us a little confused. Yeah. You know, and I was a little upset you didn't wear your blazer.
I forgot.
Okay, well, so I'm Alan, and this is Marquise. Yeah. Okay. So, as you heard earlier, I just wanted to repeat sort of the criteria that the committee developed in selecting the fellows. It's quite a privilege to take a look at the work that's out there and people that come to the table as fellows. And the process of just seeing everything is very, it sort of changes your year to watch these amazing people doing this kind of work. But you know, becoming a fellow is about the excellence of the work, but also very much about the impact of the work. We talk about design quite often as a visual construct or something like that, but we really, all designers are making big impact, but it's interesting to understand the specific impact they're making. It's also about the steady evolution of your careers, and over a long period of time, there are designers that keep evolving and stay very relevant and productive, and also the long view of the impact of the work. So we asked these questions at the very beginning of the session of the committee. They'd sort of guided us. Number one, what are they teaching us? How have they inspired us? What change for good have they influenced? How have they pushed the edges of design? How have they helped us become better at our work and better as humans? And how have they brought us joy? And the two of you have clearly checked all the boxes. So thank you. I'll ask some questions, but also obviously give the audience an opportunity to ask questions. So Marquis, I'll start with you, okay? Alan? No, Marquis. Yeah. You've worked at the intersection of design, community building, and policy making. What do you see as the responsibility of designers and young designers in shaping more equitable and resilient communities?
Yeah, thank you. I really, right now, I try my best also just like continue to reinvent myself, get out of my comfort zone, and really push on new narratives. And so right now, I was mentioning this whole idea of enough, like the word enough is really like hitting me. And I really believe that whether it's education systems, schools, K through 12 and beyond, really getting a better sense of what is enough. I think that there's just this energy of excess of things just not being enough, whether that's time, food, money, energy, whatever that is. I really consider, are the experts of understanding the spatial relationship of our needs and how those spatial relationships between what is enough is really, really embedded in the work that we do. And there are times where we don't always have the strength to tell our clients enough. Tell communities like, hey, this is where we can come in, and here is where enough begins and ends. And so right now, for me, it's really pushing on and expanding on these ideas and really passing those ideas to others to be a bit of a yes and on it. But that's where I feel like our responsibility is to understand and really embody what enough is.
Yeah, I love that idea. And you also talked about it as like white space when you think of design of page, that, leaving the white space. What is it that the next generation or current generation needs to understand about the value of white space, all right, which is about not building something and using a place for the wonder that it is, and that the idea not everything needs to be built. Also, what I find is interesting, and you may have experienced this in your work, is COVID did this, but I feel like we're feasibly embarking on the greatest era of adaptive reuse as a possibility, right? Because you've got all these structures that exist that aren't being really utilized anymore. There seems to be a real opportunity there too.
The work that I do, and some people out have asked me, so how do I get into projects? What does that look like? And I've been very lucky to have the ability to embrace ambiguity. And
Embrace what?
Ambiguity, like that unknown space. And one of my favorite projects that really embraces that a lot was the Low Line, which is the underground park that we were building on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. And the two founders came to me when it was basically just a napkin idea and said, hey, we want to build this. We want to bring the sunlight in and grow things underground, which sounds crazy. And I was like, cool, this is great. Let's do it. And through that process of saying yes and understanding what those possibilities are, I've really built a lot of the career and the ability to really think about what's possible. So it was an adaptive reuse project. It was an old subway terminal where subway cars would come from Brooklyn and turn around. It's about the size of a football field. And so thinking about a city like New York City and cities all around the world, what do we have? And this will go back to, we have enough. We have enough of everything that we need. Again, us as designers, we have all the tools not only to think about adaptive reuse, but to really think about what don't we need? Where should we have white space? If you look at cities like Dallas and you walk around, it's so interesting, the lack of sight lines. Right? That the ability to actually see what you're supposed to see that was designed to be beautiful is now in front of a lot of other things. And we've gotten to a place to where our cities are growing like weeds, and you can't really understand direction, understand space. Even when I go to Brooklyn now, I used to look at the clock tower to orient myself. I can't even see the clock tower, right? And so there are these things. I'm not saying that we shouldn't continue to find ways to support healthy living through housing and other things. I do believe that there's a better way to do that allows us to actually still be able to connect with our environment, connect with each other. And that's where I feel like from a design standpoint, we need to be able to push back and say, let's think about something else.
Yeah, no, it's really important to think about that. That's great. Shirin, it's funny, you and I were talking yesterday, and we're talking about the simple life a little bit, and it sort of leans into that idea that you can't forget, it's a little bit where happiness is as well, and you talked about family and things like that. So I know that your work is, even though it's amazing, and the architecture and all of that is fascinating and it's big, but you're very people-centric as well. And so I read about both of you to get up to speed, but I read in an interview that when you work with groups of people that are at the table and have a variety of cultures and quite a variety of methods, right? You work to balance the mentality of decision-making versus discussion. I thought that was fascinating, right? And you said that when that's successful, projects actually can be pushed forward, on time, on budget, sort of thing. Can you talk about that approach of the mentality of decision-making and versus discussion in groups that you're working with?
Yeah, I think working internationally is exactly about this topic. When we look at projects in Europe, these are projects where we have really time of about 10 years for projects, large-scale projects, and there's too much time to discuss. And the project is not getting better by all these discussions and by all these several rounds of variations and other ideas, and a little bit better and more emotional and more, sometimes I really don't know what people really expect. On the other hand side, we have international projects, mostly in China, Asia, and so on, which have a timeline which is somehow incredibly short, where decision making is they take decisions on in each step how they should do, and this sometimes also is a problem because the time for discussion is missing, and I think something in between is what we need to do. We need the time to discuss what at one point we should take decisions and we should move project forwards. And if we talk about white spaces, that everything is predominated by design and given, I think this is definitely something where we should focus on people, what do people mean, and create flexible spaces in architecture. From background, I'm an architect, and I believe we have projects which come from the community. They are created by the community, the need for the project, and then the politicians take it and somehow find the founding and all that behind, and then projects somehow derive because people were active and somehow showed that there is a need for a project and a requirement. And I think this is something which we really should focus. We should find. I today tried in my lecture to try to show very small projects and humble projects, and not only the large project, because I believe that we should find the right scale on design and what we offer to the people and how much space we leave for them to inhabit what we offer on spaces.
Yeah. So a lot of the decisions, it seems like there might be two kinds of decisions. One is how are people feeling about things relative to the project, and then there's the actual design decisions of the thing itself. Is there two different ways of looking at that?
I think not two different ways. Basically, design decisions should always be driven by the vision, and this vision should not get lost throughout the complete process until realization. And I think this is sometimes a problem in long-term projects we have, that there are so many problems and challenges we are facing, budget and time, and I don't know, political and administrative challenges, but to get large-scale projects through is really a challenge to keep the quality, to keep the vision, and this is why I also like this really small projects where we can try things, where people are courageous, where it's not so important what happens, and these are really crazy good possibilities to develop something.
Yeah, that's a great balance. So, Marquise, relative to this sort of people-to-people interactions, right? You've been a strong advocate of non-performative community engagement, right? You're not just trying to check a box. How can, what do you think about how designers that maybe even had experienced that sort of thing or initiated that sort of thing, would embrace that and talk about, this idea of non-performative community engagement versus real community engagement?
Yeah. So just a quick. So I'm originally from Ohio. I'm a Midwestern kid. Originally from Ohio. My dad was over community action and Head Start as a kid, and so being in community was just always a natural. I'm also a PK kid. My dad was a minister, so I have all these touch points where it was just a way of living, going to people's homes and connecting and caring about people. And so I grew up understanding the difference between community engagement that would come into a neighborhood to say, hey, we're going to do something, and you would have this big town hall meeting, and you would have stickies and vote and all those things, versus the process where really I was born out of really understanding how to connect with people. The other aspect of growing up in Ohio as well is that I'm an industrial designer by birth, right? Just being there. My grandparents and uncles all worked in the steel mill or the auto plant. I grew up at a time when something broke, you actually fixed it, and you didn't throw it away. But I would watch my grandparents make stuff based on who we were and what they needed at the time. And even if that was just some great tape and, stretching and pulling and making things, you knew how to do that, whether it was an antenna for, your TV, right? You knew how to make things, and you understood that I'm trying to get the TV channel to look like this, to watch this. So it was always personal to you. So I approached human-centered design and the design of understanding the lived experience the same way of saying, this neighborhood, these individuals have a certain culture, have a certain way of life that you can't capture in just a bunch of word clouds, because you can't design from a word cloud. You have to be able to take that information, synthesize it, which is one of the most challenging things for designers to do, synthesize and critique and understand and have an actual dialogue of what does lived experience look like. What that actually comes out an outcome from a programming standpoint is simple things like, what does belonging look like? What does it actually feel like to belong and be able to sit and linger in a park? Walking out of this hotel, I get really frustrated. There is no place to sit outside. Not one place to linger and just enjoy the weather. Someone didn't think about the lived experience of someone who's actually at this hotel who just wants to go out and have a cup of coffee and sit outside and enjoy it. Those are the types of programming touch points that really understanding the lived experience helps to design for. And that's where I say the distinction between performative, where you just want to check a box, get some word clouds, and non-performative, lived experience, understanding the transition from lived experience through the design process to actually something that's tangible, that feels good for each individual.
Thanks, Marquise. I'm going to put out some questions or offer some time for the audience to do a question. I just want to ask Shirin one next. In an interview, you said that your role has evolved quite a bit over years of growth, right? And you've adopted a self-given title, right? And in German, I apologize for this, you'll correct me, the title was Mädchen für alles, Mädchen für alles, right? The girl for everything. And I thought that was great. Would you explain the job description of the girl for everything?
Yeah, I think, I founded this company, and by founding a company, you do everything. You set up the company, I was a secretary, I was the person who do the contract, I was the person to do the designs, and throughout this 30-year experience now, and with 130 people, I know how to do all that, yeah. I know what it means, and Mädchen für alles, the girl for everything, I step in, I take responsibility for everything what's happening in this office and what is necessary, for what needs to be done to get to the result what we want to do. And I step in where it is needed. And if I see in the kitchen the drawer is dirty, I just clean it fast, it's done in 5 minutes. And if I somehow need to solve a problem where 10 millions are the problem, and which somehow come to us as something which we need to solve, then I do this, and I don't ask for who made a mistake, because we all do mistakes every day. And by doing something, you do mistakes, and I think this Fehlerkultur, the culture of doing mistakes, I don't know if this exists in English, I think this is something we really should, we should create something in our office, and this is, you may do mistakes, but then everybody needs to step in to somehow find the solution. And the team does this for me. I do mistakes, and I am the girl for everything to do it for everything what is happening in this crazy team where I don't know what they are doing all day long.
Yeah. That's great. That's fascinating. And I think it's interesting the way you talk about it. It's a gift of service. I mean, you are really just there to serve everyone when you're doing things like that. And I guess that's a culture in the idea of it's okay to make a mistake, we got your back, and everybody feeds into that and solving the problem versus blame or calling out, which is really great. Yeah, I find that I am the only person in my office at the cafe that cleans that drain. You know, the drain that gets all that stuff on it? Nobody ever sees that. I'm not sure if my eyes work differently, but... And I do it in, you know, there's a lot of people in there, and they're always seeing me do it. I just thought maybe someone would mimic that at some point, you know. But I'm proud to do it. So, okay, how about you guys? Does anybody have a question? We got one?
I know you can't see anything.
No.
I think we don't.
So I think this is for Shirin. I remember from your talk that you were talking about the Grand Egyptian Museum, and it was given almost an impossible time frame, 6 months, to do the largest museum, and probably including interpretive planning, all the casework, all those, you know, like good stuff. And sounds like you've done it.
Yes.
And so I think designers often shoot ourselves on the foot. And so now that you've done it, next client comes to you and say, well, this gallery is going to be 1/10 of the size of that last one. That was the biggest one. So you can do it in 6 weeks. Or like how do you deal with clients when they have kind of impossible ideas for timeline, budget, and impact?
I think, first of all, you need to understand the project. Is this timeline a real timeline, or is this a political timeline? And there are many projects, everybody knows that this will never happen. And then you just need to play this game, and then somehow you come to a reasonable timeline. There are the other projects where this timeline is really fixed, and if it's then too short, then you should not step in, because this will not lead to anything. And it happened also in my life, that I thought it's a political timeline, and it was not a political timeline. It was impossible to achieve. And this does not lead anywhere. Then it's better to say it's not possible, yeah, and not to do it. And maybe somebody else knows better how to do it. It can be, but at the end, there are processes which take a minimum of time. And this 6 months, it really, when we started doing this, I signed the contract with this timeline, and I went to my associates, because I thought, okay, now I need the best people in our office to somehow do this. And then they told me, you are driving us to ruin, yeah? This is impossible to do it. But then we hired in 2 months 25 people and brought them from all over the world to Stuttgart, and coffee machine and printing, and how does this all work? They just come at 1st of January, everybody comes, or 2nd. And then we did it, and this was an incredible feeling, and there was power in this team, and there was knowledge and new people and all, and this spirit. This somehow everybody from the other teams came over and looked what's happening here, and this was somehow a spirit which made it possible, yeah. But of course, quality would have been different. I don't say better, but different if you have 1 year maybe for a task like that.
Yeah. You also mentioned, which I'll share, that all those people, you made them all project managers, so they all had ownership of the job.
But this was in the very beginning when we started. We won one competition after the next, and then every person who came in the office, new employee, you are project manager, you are project manager, and we just did it. It was so simple.
That's great. Another question?
Hey.
Hey, John.
Thank you both for your presentations and listening to you talk. One thing that strikes me, both of you are sort of innovators and entrepreneurs in different ways. Shirin, just in terms of how you're thinking about the structure of your studio and the sort of the eclectic nature of it and the growth of it. And Marquise, just in terms of your businesses, and you know, it's sort of more of an outward growth and evolution. And I'm curious, I have a lot of questions, but I suppose I'm curious about how you maintain your connectivity to the impetus that created the need to grow like that or to evolve like that.
So remember I told you she had 2 mimosas? You okay?
I would say, I have like 3 basic principles. One of which is that I'm one big we, right? And so it is not just me. And I make sure that I partner and I hire with trust. And then I move at the speed of trust. I only move at the speed of trust. And that means that I'm pacing and understanding the relationship and where the relationship is and where the relationship is not. And I spend a lot of time making sure that I'm building those connectivities. What that does is allow for my second principle is really the creating the conditions to be surprised, right? And so again, a lot of the way that I get projects is that I am open to the ambiguity and understanding, so that does create a lot of trust where people go like, call Marquise, he'll create the space to figure it out. It doesn't have to be perfect if you talk to him, right? So that creates some trust where they don't have to be perfect to talk to me, or we can work on something. And then the third one for me is I really believe in the proximity of luck.
You say that again?
Proximity of luck. So the proximity of luck is this room. There's so many people here that I'm sure we're all just a degree away. And if we all had to go in lockdown and they gave us enough scrap paper and some stuff, we will make some shit in here, right? Like, we would build something amazing, right? Because there's a proximity of insight that can move at the speed of trust that creates the conditions to be surprised. And when you can pull all those things together, you really create this magic. And I say to people, I don't solve problems. I am not a problem solver. I create better conditions. So every project that I do, it's about what conditions am I creating for the next generation, right? So adaptive reuse, the most amazing is when you see buildings that were built 100 years ago. There's a Starbucks at the bottom, there's something else, there's a sports facility. Those were engineers and designers who, whether they were intentional in understanding, they had the time and the effort to actually put in something, to create something that could last a long time. They created the conditions to be surprised.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. I guess we're running out of time. I'm going to ask one more question and we'll close it out, okay? So, both of you help people come to understand things more deeply by the experience of participation and inclusion, and also the final outcomes you create in your work. It's truly a gift to those people you work with and work for. But I imagine in each project, you each come to understand something new as well in each project. Can you share an experience where you were changed somehow in the project? Shirin?
Okay, I'm very bad in finding this. Basically, I think it's in each single project has this moment, yeah? When you somehow try to understand how does this work, you approach a project with an idea how this works, basically, yeah? You set up a scope and a team and understand what are the requirements and try to create the best setup to perform. This is what we try to do. But then at one moment you understand it's different, yeah? There are different challenges and we are not set up properly. Maybe we need a change in team, a change in strategy, a different approach in design. And this is something, I think it's in every project, basically, yeah? Because you somehow get deeper and understand and discuss with clients, with colleagues, with collaborators. And then I think you need to be fast in understanding that and in adapting. And then a project is on track again.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, now I'll add to that and say, particularly for, say, students or young people who are coming up through their career, life is not about answers, it's about asking better questions. And everything that we've done, everything that we've touched, what I come away with is better questions. And that, to me, is the progress of the career and the projects. is when I can come away. So the Maholi film, I love people who ask me, so what was this film supposed to be about? I go, no. We didn't come to answer a question. We're here to provoke a question. You tell me, what have you seen in watching Maholi to ask better questions in your life and your career and things that you want to touch? So I would say the answer is always better questions.
Thank you for that. So I'll close it out. I just want to say you are both precious and unique individuals. And I just want to say thank you for sharing your work and your lives with us here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.